the Twinsburg Government Center Council Chambers. Shannon, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Mr. Deeds?
Here.
Mrs. Labby?
Here.
Mr. Bellin?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mr. Post?
Here. All right, wonderful. Thank you, Shannon. At this time, Mr. Fury will lead us in the invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Take a moment of silence and keep in mind the horror that are going on in Israel now, and pray for all those involved that they're safe as best they can be, and that this terrible onslaught ends shortly. Heavenly Father, we come to you today asking for your guidance, wisdom, and support as we begin this meeting. Help us to encourage in meaningful discussion, allow us to grow closer as a group and mature the bonds of the community. Fill us with your grace as we make decisions that will affect all the residents and businesses and our dedicated city employees. Bless those away from us serving to protect our country. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. That moves us on to approval of the minutes from the regular council meeting on September 26th and the special council meeting on September 28th, both of 2023. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of these two meetings? And if so, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I did find one thing that needs changed real in the first paragraph on the regular council meeting.
Okay.
Steve Basso says that by doing this, we'll save $2. It was actually $2 million.
Just a couple zeros.
Just good catch, Mr. Post.
So I think we'll save a little more than $2.
Any other, and that was at the minutes for the regular meeting of Tuesday, September 26th.
Regular.
Any other discussion regarding the minutes?
Make a motion that the minutes are approved as submitted, with the exception of the correction on Steve Basso's number.
I was unavailable for the special meeting, so are you going to read these separately? Because I'd have to abstain for that one. I can't make it.
I don't see any issue. I mean, you can abstain. I think that's fine. We don't need to read them separately. We can do them as one motion. I mean,
Need a second.
we need a second on Mr. Fury's motion?
I'll second.
Mr. Ballin seconds. Any other discussion? All right, Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Abstain?
And Mr. Barr?
Yes. The minutes pass 6-0. Shannon, do we have any awards or presentations this evening?
We do not.
All right, and that would move us along to audience participation. Do we have any audience participation?
We do. First, we have Lori Facina.
All right. Good evening. You just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Council, Mayor, and Law Director Lori Facina, 2950 Cannon Road. Nine or no, I'm here tonight to talk about the Charter Review Commission and the 14 amendments that are on the ballot. Nine or no, this speech is mine, but nine or no was a sound bite from Sally Gaydash. We have 14 charter amendments that you have sent to the ballot in November. You received more than enough qualified candidates, but put a man on that committee who is not a qualified elector. This man has served on other boards and committees and took the oath at the commencement of this charter review, even though he's not a registered voter in Twinsburg. And that's state law too. Any jurisdiction, when you sit on a board or anything, qualified elector. I have all the minutes from the 5 meetings. This non-qualified member was a vocal participant, making motions and seconding during the first 2 meetings. Then a city resident alerted City Hall that the man was not a qualified elector before the 3rd meeting. However, he still participated in that third meeting. And at the same time, the chair missed 2 out of the 5 meetings. At a council meeting after that third Charter Review Commission meeting, Ordinance 67 was on the agenda. That ordinance had the name of a replacement member for the Charter Review Committee, but the law director decided to table the ordinance. Could it be that he saw 3 qualified electors that had submitted their forms to City Hall but were passed over? Then, 2 weeks later, our law director said they had withdrawn Ordinance 67, and since there were only 2 more meetings, they'd be going ahead with 8. Subsequently, council passed the measure as an emergency, rushing it through to get it on the ballot. Our past law director is on record saying that this can't fly. The only lawful thing would have been to start over with 9 qualified electors. 9 qualified electors. That's what our charter says. 9 is what our charter says. Not 8, not 7, only 9. That is the law. You can't make it up as you go along. So again, I urge you that the only lawful thing to do here is to remove these 14 charter amendments from the November ballot. Not taking that action opens the city up to charges of discrimination and deviance from the charter. No or 9. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Collins, anyone else this evening?
Next, we have Sue Clark.
Good evening.
Good evening. Sue Clark, 9845 Crestwood Drive. Good evening, council, mayor, law director. I attended the last Zone Co meeting on October 4th, and I wanted to bring some concerns to your attention. I know that you want us to rely on the administration and department heads for questions, but that's hard to do with all the inconsistencies that we've seen. I'm concerned that you posted the industrial heights of the building at 45 feet. What's it going to take to fix that? It's on the wall, it's on the website. I'm concerned that Zone Co did not know there were changes to the code in May. They did not fact check the information on height, and I specifically asked that question if they went back to look. I'm concerned that the working group does not know what pattern districting is and cannot explain it to the residents. What has me concerned the most is that you're putting all of your eggs in one basket to rewrite the zoning code, and that it will pass. But if it does not, we've spent $158,000 and still have not fixed our current code. I'm willing to help if you guys would like to offer whatever I can. I've been researching, I've been looking at Zone Co, I've been looking at other areas, Marysville, Portsmouth, seeing how it's done so that we can be proactive instead of reactive. If you guys would like to look at their city councils, you'll see that there's issues going on there. In both of them, you can go back and read their minutes and look. But I'm pleading with you guys. Please get in front of this, know it. Really, really understand what you're doing. This is huge to our city. It's huge. So I ask it of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Sheila Williams.
Good evening.
Sheila Williams. We had a Kent State meeting this morning, so I wanted to give a brief report on the meeting. We have, we're looking for an outreach coordinator, counselor. So if you know anyone in the counseling business, Kent State is looking for someone to work with the students to help direct them. Everyone is having a problem finding employees, and that was part of our discussion this morning, and it's up and down. There's been no increase in enrollment. Everyone is pretty flat. Main campus is down a little bit, but all the regional campuses are flat. And part of it is that we think that many of the students have gone into the workforce. I don't know where they're working at, because everywhere I go, I can't seem to get any help. It's interesting. But it is something, and then The new president he's not new, he's been there in that position, I guess, about a year and a half now. He started something that's called Across the Line, where each regional campus is looped in together, and where we were the first to offer online classes, now we share that, and the other regional campuses have accessibility also. We also share faculty and administrators. So it's a new take on being more efficient, and I think it's good, but then I don't want to see our dean go down to Trumbull, like she told us she had to go to Trumbull for a couple of days doing something. I don't know if that means their dean is going to come up here, but it's something new that they're working on, so I just wanted to make you all aware of that. And then I want to say for the public to hear also, that building is available for meetings. The Rotary Club, anyone who's having a meeting in and around Twinsburg, they are open from 8 to 8, Monday through Fridays. So, let us utilize the building. It is free to nonprofits, and there's a small charge that you can get online, and there's a form available to be completed. And I said it would be nice if maybe we might have a council meeting there, because it has enough rooms and different things to have something. But if you haven't been down to the facility, take a trip down and walk around. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. We are looking at a fundraiser, and it's going to be an ongoing fundraiser, and I will be coming to council personally, privately, to talk about it. We're looking at something for the nursing department, and it's to help the students. This money that we're looking at trying to raise as a board goes directly to the students, not by way of Kent Main campus. All the money will stay in Twinsburg, and it's targeted. So when I come to you, I'll have a little bit more information about that. Let me see. We talked about the 3 top programs. The nursing program is our big program. We have about 100 students. Psychology is the next one, and then business, and then IT. And as we're looking at building the programs, we're looking at what we can do, like in certification type of programs that might encourage more students to come on campus. But they have gotten really lazy, and I must say that. They want to take all these classes online. And I don't know how you take everything online and you don't interact with people. That's a little concerning to me, that we are having some real issues with that more and more. So there's not a lot we can do about it. The online programs are going well, and they've always gone well. But since COVID, they've picked up momentum. And let me see. We're looking at what the board can do to make everyone aware of Kent State. And one of the things we talked about was community awareness and the fact that we are a public building. If there's something that you think that we can do to make people more aware, please get in contact with me and let me know, and I'll take it back to the meeting. But it was a good meeting this morning, and we're just trying to move things forward in the best interest of students. So I want to let everyone know. Any questions? Okay, and I'm still working on your thing.
Thank you, Mrs. Williams.
Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you, Sheila.
And last, we have Bob Hughes.
Good evening, Council. Bob Hughes, 2229 Demi Drive in Twinsburg, Ohio. I've spoken to you before about how Twinsburg has allowed itself to get into some faulty documentation on the zoning code by allowing an unelected bureaucrat to enter data into the American legal without any cross-checks. This person, Larry Finch, had a long-term position, and for reasons I don't know and could care less, he did the city wrong. I know that he certainly is enjoying a luxurious retirement in another state, one much better than most people who retire from public service. I guess he was extremely lucky in the stock market. Anyway, we have proven to you that he is guilty of at least 2 major lies in American legal. First, the 45-foot when it was 35-foot, and secondly, the 1187.27. But believe me, there is much more. But my present concern that he has an acolyte that is following in his footsteps, and that acolyte is Lynn Muter. Both of them ignore what the charter says, that changes in the zoning are to be approved by the vote of the electorate. This has been ruled on by the courts multiple times, and every time they say the same thing. Zoning in Twinsburg requires the affirmative vote of the electorate in each ward. 2 things are evident. Our existing American legal document is corrupt. And the only viable reliable zoning code dates to 1989. Secondly, anything that is touched, manipulated, or changed by Lynn Muter is minimally suspect and most likely false. We have been told that she is playing a major role in the latest redo of the zoning code. All of you should recognize from the fiasco she created with Old Mill that there is a problem. And those who don't know history, well, you know the rest of that saying. Thank you very much.
That's all we have this evening.
All right, moving along to council communication and committee reports. Mr. Bellin, why don't you start us off this evening?
Good evening. Thank you very much. The Public Works meeting that was scheduled for this evening was actually moved into our caucus this evening. We had a report from Amy Moore where she was giving us some updates about construction projects throughout the city through the rest of the year. In addition to that, she mentioned that the tree planting program will continue this year. In mid-November, we will replace 62 trees around the city. That was the last Public Works meeting scheduled for 2023. Earlier this evening, we conducted interviews for the open Ward 2 Parks and Rec Commission. I would like to thank everyone who applied and who made time to come out this evening. The next meeting of the Finance Committee will be on Tuesday, October 24th at 6 p.m. here in Council Chambers. The next meeting of the Safety Committee will be on November 14th at 6 p.m. here in Chambers. As mentioned, the work on the zoning code update continues. The second public open house was on Wednesday, October 4th at the Twinsburg Community Center. I have to say I was thrilled by the turnout at the event. We were able to get feedback and input from the residents, and those conversations will be incorporated into our new zoning code as we move forward. Also, the 4th zoning code public survey will be available later in October, and I'll have additional updates as they become available. To learn more about the zoning code update project, please visit togethertwinsburg.com and scroll to the featured project section. Nothing further this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bellin. Mr. Deeds, good evening, sir.
Good evening. I attended the Board of Zoning Appeals hearing on September 27th. Case number 03-2023 was approved, and we'll be discussing that later. Last night, I attended the JEDI committee meeting as a resident, now that the structure's changed. I believe Deji will be talking a little bit more about that, or Mrs. Walker will be telling us about that later. The community relations meeting will be here in council chambers at 8 a.m. Next Thursday, October 19th. And lastly, I'd like to talk a little bit. So on September 28th, which was a week ago Thursday, there was a fire on Andover Drive. It was a garage fire. It's my understanding that that some batteries in the garage overheated, sparked, caught the garage on fire, caught the upstairs bedroom on fire. Luckily, the residents were not home. The wife was home, the husband was not home. They had 3 school-aged children who were all at school. Luckily, no one was injured. I subsequently talked to the homeowner and neighboring residents, and although Mr. Bosso is not here this evening. I just want to say there was nothing but praise for our safety forces, for our fire force, there was several neighboring communities that also came to the aid. Just nothing but praise about the speed and professionalism in which they acted. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for that, for our safety forces. And I know there was also some neighbors, some area residents that took a collection together for the clothes, food, meals, things like that for the resident that was caught in the fire. They're probably going to be out 6 to 8 months out of their home. So I just want to say that if anyone has anything that they would like to give for this family or raise money, whatever you might be wanting to do, please reach out to me and I'll get you in touch with them. That's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dietz. Mrs. Walker, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. I attended the Environmental Commission meeting on October 3rd, and some of the things we talked about was on October 22nd, you could take some of your paper recycling to the Twinsburg Library, and they will accept that. Also, we discussed the community gardens, and one of the representatives, on the Environmental Convention mentioned, she wanted me to present this to council, and she said that when they go to the community gardens, they need tools and they need a place to store them. And if we have any rules and regulations about when you go to the community garden, you purchase a plot, but what do you do with your tools and your shovels and whatever? Because they want like a garage or a stationary area that they could just hang their tools on. And I told them, I said, I don't know, I'll check with the mayor and council on it. And they also mentioned about the water, if, I've never been there, I'm just gonna tell you that, because if I plant in my own yard. But they wanted to know, are there hoses there, if you can turn them on and off, and I said, I don't know, I'll just bring this to council and the mayor and let you know about that. Okay, and then number 2, we had our JEDI meeting yesterday. It was a very good meeting, and the last meeting we had, I would like to read this from a Twinsburg teacher. She is really overwhelmed and just excited about JEDI. And she says, I saw the message in the Twinsburg newsletter about the JEDI committee, and I was wondering if you might consider something. I have a class at Twinsburg High School called Writing for the Civic Engagement. The goal is to get students to interact with their community and to prove to them that their voices are valued and heard in the world outside of the classroom. I was wondering if you might be interested in bringing the committee, she's talking about the JEDI committee, for a classroom visit or allowing my students to sit in on a meeting so they can know what type of conversations are happening in Twinsburg related to equity. I love to give them the opportunity to share their concerns and to hear what your mission is. I absolutely understand if you don't have time for this in the near future, but I figured if I reached out to ask. Thank you so much. The teacher's name is Maggie Chernick. I have her phone number. I would love to get back with her, whether we come here or we present JEDI to the schools. Whatever we decide, mayor and council, let's meet and we'll discuss this. Thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Walker. Fury, good evening.
Thank you and good evening. I had an opportunity to attend the zoning workshop at open house last week, and I'd like to thank Rebecca Ziegler, who's in the audience, as well as Lynn Muter for the great job that they did putting that together. There were some comments earlier this evening where somebody disparaged Ms. Muter, and it wasn't too long ago where I watched her stand in a room of very emotional people and try to get her point across. And that was probably one of the toughest days she's had in Twinsburg. I've known her for a long time. I think she's a person of character, and I'm disappointed that you would call her a liar on a public stage. That's just wrong. By the way, Larry Finch retired at 72, and he lives on Haggett Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Mr. Post, good evening, sir.
Thank you very much. Again, another short summary here. The Planning Commission meeting last month was canceled. First it was moved because of the holiday, the Jewish holiday, and then it was canceled because too many people were sick. So everyone's feeling better now, though, and we are going to meet again on October 16th. And the Van Eagles Advisory meeting was also canceled. So now much to report again, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Post.
Thank you.
Mrs. Labby, good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm well.
Good evening, everyone. I also had the opportunity to attend the second zoning code open house last week. I had several positive conversations with candidates, and I have to thank Rebecca for jumping in and helping me on some of them. And actually, I had several emails after and followed up with the residents that I spoke with. So I certainly appreciate the immediate follow-up, and as I'm sure they did as well. The same night I attended a Twins Days committee meeting, and yes, there are already 246 twins signed up for next year. The next meeting is November 8th. The October 5th ARB meeting was canceled due to lack of agenda items. The next meeting is October 19th at 6 p.m. I attended last night's Jedi committee meeting as I was still going to be at the table at the police and fire open house tomorrow. Unfortunately, I forgot about a prior commitment that I have, and I will be unable to do so. But police and fire open house tomorrow evening, always great for the kids to attend that. The next meeting of Jedi is November 13th at 6 p.m. In the Parks and Recs Department, look for Family Fall Fest on October 28th, including trunk or treat and a family pumpkin carving contest, which sounds like a lot of fun. Pickleball is back inside. So all of you who are fearing the cold weather, the Court 3 is open from Monday through Friday, 5:30 a.m. till 2 o'clock. So fear not, pickleball will continue. In senior news, it's still looking for snowplow registrations until November 30th on twinsburgrec.com. That's all for me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Labby. My report is brief this evening. We did approve minutes from two meetings earlier this evening. At the first meeting, our regular council meeting on the 26th, Assistant Chief Basso presented before council about wanting to actually save money for the residents and provide a better service by looking at options for replacing one of our aging ladder trucks. At the time of that presentation, there were 3 trucks that were available in relatively short order. To get on the list to do that, since those trucks were available nationally, council was asked to convene a special meeting on Thursday the 28th, which we did, and thank everybody for coming. In the time between the meeting on the 26th and the 28th, I believe one of the trucks sold. We were able to pass legislation on the 28th to not only save the residents, to Mr. Post's point of the minute correction, over $2 million over a 5-year period, but to get on the list for one of the remaining 2 available trucks. And I believe Mr. Basso, Chief Basso, mentioned to Mr. Ballin on Friday night's football game that the second of the 3 trucks sold. So I do want to thank Chief Basso for looking out for the residents, trying to provide the best service he possibly can, saving us money in the long run. Thank my colleagues on council for getting together, but it does show you the timeliness and the demand right now for fire apparatus. We're also going to be taking delivery of that truck hopefully in, I believe it was about 24 months as opposed to 4+ years. So again, kudos to the fire department for looking out. That's all I have this evening. Mayor, we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Just a few announcements I have to make tonight. First off, the 3rd Annual Family Fest. This is just reminders, is this on Saturday, October 28th, 12 to 3 at Glen Chamberlain Park. It's free and open to the public. The annual Turkey Trot, our Veterans Day edition, it's held on Veterans Day, November 11th, and they will be collecting food and items that we're going to be donating to the local food bank, but also any money that's collected will be going to them as well. But we are also collecting for an Army infantry group that we're going to be they're looking for, if somebody wants to write a letter to one of the service men or women, they can do that, bring the letter up there, but please don't seal the envelope. You got to leave the envelope open. And then they're looking for any toiletries, toothpaste, anything that you want to bring up to this, up to the Turkey Trot would be appreciated, and it'll be donated to that infantry group. Pre-registration will end on the 26th of October, so if you want a discounted pre-registration for either the 1 mile or the 5 mile, you can do that before October 26th. Otherwise, each one goes up by $5. Finally, we have, probably the chief's here, and he's probably going to talk about this, but we have our safety open house coming up, and I'll let the chief say a little bit more about that. Finally, we had a ribbon cutting again. I like to talk about those. We had Crazy Ben's open up. We cut the ribbon there on the 4th of October. That's in the old Gander Mountain space, and it's a nice store. We were there. We went in there. They opened up. They had their grand opening on Saturday, the 7th of October, and from my understanding, the line was wrapped around the building just to get in there. And what they do, they have their merchandise is from overstocked from Target, so they have a lot of Target items in there. They have everything's discounted. When you look at the clothing in there and you look at the price tags, clothing is discounted by 70% off the retail price. Household goods, I believe, are like 50% off the price. Someone on the staff here was so happy they have diapers there. Those are discounted in it. So, yeah, I think she's sitting here. And those are also 50% off, and they're Huggies. So they're name brand. They're just not anybody's diaper. These are really good diapers. So, go in there. It's worth taking a look at and stopping in. The owners are very friendly, and they're willing to help, and I think it's going to be a nice addition to that area. I do want to say one thing. First of all, I want to mention, Mr. Fury, your comments. I echo your comments 100%. I think that it's a shame that anybody would try to stand up here and ruin somebody's reputation. It's unfortunate. It's uncalled for, and I would hope that that could stop at our microphone. That should not belong here, whether they're a current employee or whether they're a former employee. We don't know where people are that have retired from here. I guess Mr. Fury just mentioned it. He's still living over on Haggett, so that's where he's at. But that kind of conduct needs to stop in this council chambers, and I hope that we can stop that from this point on. We would not allow anybody to step to that microphone and name any one of us, and I would hope that we cannot have this happen to any of our departments. I work with these people day in and day out for the last year and a half. We have a staff here that's second to none, and I would put these folks up against anybody. They're not liars. They're not cheaters. They know their job. They work hard day in and day out for this community and for this city and for all the people in this community. So I give them kudos. And for anybody to try to tarnish their reputations, I think is a travesty, and it should not be allowed at our microphone. That's it. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We have some department heads reporting.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do have one more thing.
Go.
I'm sorry, I apologize. The charter amendments, there are 7 charter amendments that were sent to the ballot, and I mentioned this last time. We put together these booklets for folks to get to know what those charter amendments are. You'll get to see the ballot language along with the language in there that's just in everyday English that we can all understand. We've put them at the library, we've got them at the golf course, we've got them at the fitness center, we've got them over here in City Hall, we've got them in the senior center, and they're going. We were called today, the library ran out of them already. So the people are picking them up, they're looking at them, and really want to make informed decision when they go to the polls. So I encourage everybody to pick up one of these booklets. There was a lot of time and work put into them and putting them together so everybody could understand. We've got the videos out there on social media. Please look at the videos. I think they were done very well by some of our charter members. So you can go to the ballot and feel comfortable when you vote, and at least vote your mind and what you feel by reading the booklets. And that's all. Again, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any department heads reporting this evening?
Sorry, this is Tom.
Chief, are you?
Yes, I do.
Ah.
Chief Mason.
Perfect. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening.
All right, just a few things for you. As the mayor mentioned, tomorrow is the open house, the Safety Forces open house. It's something we've been doing, geez, for as long as I can remember. Starts at 5:30, usually goes till about 8. It's an all-ages event. There's a ton of activities. There's a lot of things to do. There's some tours of the facilities, the equipment, activities for the kids, a lot of food. So I encourage everybody to come. I believe they're pushing it out through the schools as well. You know, it's especially popular with the school-age kids, but adults are more than welcome, and I think everybody gets something out of it. So just a reminder that it's tomorrow night. Excuse me. So I'll start with my report. So my report's a summary of September 2023. So just a couple numbers for you. The total calls for service are 3,307. We're a few hundred calls up. It brings the total for the year to 25,463. Some of the calls of note in there, we had 4 calls of theft, 5 for possession of drugs, drug-related offenses, 1 incident of domestic violence, 5 for operating under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs, 12 warrant arrests, 2 weapons offenses. We had a total of 153 individuals arrested and/or cited on a total of 190 counts. As far as crashes go, we had a total of 32 crashes for the month. 26 were non-injury. We had 6 that were injury, 4 were on private property, and none were fatal. So one of the statistics I left out is the traffic. Traffic for the month is usually, you know, if you've heard any of my past reports, we're usually at a couple hundred traffic stops for a month period. Excuse me. This month was a little different. So as many of you know who've been to these meetings, over the last summer in particular, they've had a lot of discussion about safety in our city. We've had residents from different developments, from Ethans, Lake Plata, you know, a variety of areas from the city that have come and talked about speeding, their concerns for the residents, for the children. We had some very passionate people regarding some accidents on Glenwood, and we talked about what the contributing factors were to those accidents, and more often than not, what played into it. However, you know, one thing we heard, and this administration heard was loud and clear, was the residents' concern for traffic. So the mayor in particular, you know, he gets the most complaints. I don't know, either he does or I do. Either way, when we get something, we share it, good or bad. And, you know, he had heard enough, and I agreed, you know, we needed to put something in place. So the other thing you may know, we're limited to how many officers we have on the road at any given time and what's going on. We're not only reactive, we try to be proactive in our enforcement, but a lot of our time is dictated, we're reactive. You know, we respond to calls from the public. So when we're not, we try and initiate enforcement and do what we can. Again, that can be limited, can be challenging. So I met with my administrators, and particularly Lieutenant Bob Waltz, who's in charge of patrol. Told him I wanted to put together some type of a traffic detail. That can be hard to do when you're limited with your staffing, you know, to dedicate somebody to a traffic detail. But to Bob's credit, he put together a great plan. It's worked out really, really well so far. It's something we're going to continue. So just to give you a little idea of what we did, this started September 1st. We continued it through the month of September. We conducted a total of 622 traffic stops. So we more than doubled, close to triple the number of traffic stops we did. We put together a detail that was strategic in the areas of the city we would cover and when we would cover it throughout the day into the evening. This was not any type of a ticket writing campaign. You know, I've said it before, the city does not generate revenue from citations. That's not how we make money. I've had residents say, you wouldn't drive this fast through Oakwood, Glen Willow, places like that. A lot of those communities are traffic-driven. A lot of those communities have mayor-type courts. A lot of them do generate income from traffic violations. We do not. Doesn't mean it's less of a priority for us, but it just lends itself to my point that this was not a traffic citation campaign. It was more of a awareness, public safety, and I got to be honest with you, probably about 90% of those stops were residents, Twinsburg residents, because the concentration of that effort was in residential neighborhoods. So 600, what did I say we had? I lost my numbers here. 622 stops. And I want to break it down a little further. So Glenwood, there's been a lot of outcry on Glenwood, and understandably so. So Glenwood itself, we had a total of 245 traffic stops. So probably close to half were on Glenwood, well, actually less than half, but there were stops spread out through the entire city. However, Glenwood was one of the main focal points all the way from Liberty to Ravenna. Again, all throughout the day, all throughout the evening. So 245 stops on Glenwood alone. And just to show that we're not heavy-handed, this is more of an awareness campaign. On Glenwood itself, only 34 citations were issued out of those stops. Only 9 were verbal warnings. The majority were written warnings. Okay? When you do a campaign like this and you get over 600 stops, it does lead to other things. You end up finding people who are driving under suspended license or may have a warrant, things like that. So there are some numbers in there for people who were arrested or cited under different offenses as well. But it was a concentrated effort. It's something we're going to continue with. It's something I'd like to continue with the rest of this year, next year, get to the point where we can have more of a dedicated traffic unit to respond to our residents. I'm very proud of the way our men and women responded. It wasn't a knee-jerk reaction on any of their parts. They understood why we were doing this. I think they were more than kind, more than compassionate with the motorists they stopped. They did what they had to do when they had to do it. And again, it was more of an awareness campaign, and our people knew it. So very, very proud of what we had done in the last month. And just to give you a little more perspective, so for August of '23, we had a total of 218 stops. September of '22, so a year ago, from the time we started this campaign, 262 stops. Again, that's compared to our 622. Out of those 622 stops, 97 resulted in a citation, so about 15% were cited. The rest were given written warnings or verbal warnings. So again, I'm very, very proud of our men and women, the way they responded. I think Lieutenant Waltz did a great job of putting something in place that was asked of him and making do with what we had. I believe that concludes my report for tonight. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Great job. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, go
Thank
ahead.
you, Chief.
Oh, Chief, I think Mrs.
Yes.
Walker had something.
Yeah. One of your officers, about a week and a half ago, there was this big raccoon about this big in my backyard.
Okay.
And, the raccoon was just standing up, and it appeared that it had gotten his back leg in a cast, and obviously he pulled it out and ran in my backyard to nurse it. When I saw it, I didn't know what to do, so I called the police department. And to this day, I don't know your officer's name because I was more focused on this great big old thing in my backyard than
Right.
this person. And what he did, he stood by me, and he knew I was afraid, and he just embraced me. It's going to be okay. I'm like, are you sure it's going to be okay? You see that great big old thing out there? He goes, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So I'm so sorry. I don't know his name, but you don't know how he calmed me down. And when they took that raccoon, to me, it was this big. It could have been this big. But, they took it. I've not had any problems since. And thanks to you and whoever that police officer is, if you tell him that he was on Waldo Way trying to get a raccoon, he would say, oh, I was at Daisy Walker's house. I don't know his name, but thank him again from me, and to let you know that you do more than just give people tickets and citations.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right. That's a great point.
Right, right.
It's great to hear. I will let them know. And to your point, I mean, that day, that was the biggest thing you had going on. That was your biggest concern.
It was, really.
Well, no, I'm saying, we were responsive to your needs, and your needs vary. And then that officer probably went out and made some stops on Lake Plata, so well balanced.
But my day was made. I had a great day, a great rest
I will
of the
pass
day.
it on.
So thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, anyone else this evening?
Yes, we have Nate.
All right. Good evening, Nate.
Good evening, Council. Good evening, Mayor. All right, I have 3 topics tonight I'd like to cover with you guys. So just a brief update. I give you guys an update on the microturbine. Usually it's a money saving for us. I just wanted to reiterate the thank you for last year approving us to be able to go into a new 5-year contract with RSP, who is the company that maintains it. I've been more so grateful this past 2 months. The heat exchanger in the unit actually failed after it was reinstalled and recommissioned. There were 3 other items. The total of the items would have been well over $50,000 with it. So it actually, in the savings that we had, basically pay for the whole 5-year agreement with it. So I just wanted to say, thank you to you guys for doing your part on our side with it as well. Next, I'd like to just give a brief update on our design phase for the 30% for the wastewater treatment plant. During September, we had 6 meetings with different vendors. There were vendors that came in and had specific details about the specific pieces of equipment that actually would be installed in our wastewater plant. Fortunately, myself and a couple of my other colleagues were able to go out and visit last summer to see some of these pieces of equipment in operation in other wastewater treatment plants, talk to other individuals like myself, what they liked, what they didn't like, what they wish they could take back. So it was really beneficial to be able to sit down with these individuals. So the next step would be for B&N that I'm working with to put that information together in a matrix so that we can actually have side-by-side comparison, not just based off of cost, but the different options and bells and whistles that we want or don't want with these pieces of equipment, so that we can, over the next 2 weeks, start to actually make some decisions that are going to help aid in writing the bid spec, so that when we meet for our 30%, which is in the first part of November, we kind of reorganized the plan of action for the design. So instead of just cramming it in the end of the month, we're actually going to push it back so we have some more time to process this information. And then once we hit that 30% mark, I actually want to take some time and put some information on the Together Twinsburg website so that residents can see the work that we're doing. We have some really great graphics, some drawings, some information that I plan on putting together with that. Lastly, I just wanted to talk a little bit about smoke testing. So on September 26th, we did some smoke testing on Glenwood from Cynthia down to the railroad tracks. We did send letters out to all the residents that would potentially have any smoke that would come into their homes or around their homes. But I just wanted to take the opportunity today to reassure the residents that this is a non-toxic, non-harmful smoke. Yes.
What's the purpose of the smoke test?
I'll tell you that. Thank you. So the purpose of the smoke testing is so that we can identify cross connects between storm and sanitary.
Okay. Twinsburg
should have separate. And so we had a specific area, a resident had an odor issue that was, we couldn't find anything with looking through the lateral, looking through the traps and whatnot. And we actually ended up finding a couple other areas, things that we were able to tackle to help that resident and a couple other residents out with it. But if we do happen to come across a cross-connect, the Public Works Department would directly communicate with the resident, work with my sewer maintenance crew to help alleviate that issue if it's something that we can help with. So that's all I have. I just wanted to have the opportunity, if you guys had any additional questions with what Amy spoke about with the manholes on Glenwood at all. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate. Appreciate everything you do for us.
That's it, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. There is no legislation this evening, in a rare turn of events, but stick around for our next meeting. I'm sure we'll have some new pieces. That moves us along to unfinished business, new business, and miscellaneous. Mr. Deeds, anything this evening?
Not this evening, thank you.
All right, Mrs. Walker?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Post?
I have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Fury?
I have 2 items. Last meeting, we had Laura Leonard from the library talking about how it's important for their foundation that's a separate entity from the library that helps them with funding. And on November 16th, they're having their annual reverse raffle. Only 100 tickets are sold, and the theme is to create your own trip. So you can pick from a golf experience in Monterey, Canadian culinary celebration, Colorado in the mountains, or go to Nashville. Tickets are available on www.foundationoftpl.org, which is the foundation of the Twinsburg Library. Again, if you can support the Library Foundation, winners do not need to be present. So, and lastly, St. Cosmos and Damian has an annual food drive. Now, we have lots of food pantries within the city of Twinsburg. I've talked about our Community Hunger Center for a dozen years. But Cosmos and Damian is having the food collected at our senior center. And they are taking donations through November 3rd. They are particularly looking for macaroni and cheese, canned soups, tuna and fruit, peanut butter, cereal, pasta, sauce, paper towels, and bath tissue. Again, lastly, can we keep the people that are in the conflict in Israel in our hearts and minds and hope for peace? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fury. Mrs. Labby?
Nothing further for me, thank you.
Didn't I ask you, Mr. Poster?
I did.
You did.
All right. I'm sorry, I thought I might have skipped you. Mr. Bellin?
Yeah, just one real thing, real quick. Summit County Prosecutor Sherry Bevan Walsh has started to put out a monthly newsletter here. It's available on her website at prosecutor.summitoh.net. And it's got, it's introducing you to the prosecutors and those kind of things, but it's got some pretty good tips in here. One on the cover here, it's all about senior safety, and they're talking about avoiding scams. Things like beware of calls demanding you to take immediate action, resist the pressure to act quickly, you cannot pay your utility bills with gift cards, and check with family members and trusted friends before taking actions. And I point this out only because my mother has received 2 very similar calls to this within the last 2 or 3 months, and so I know that this is happening. So just be careful when you are getting phone calls from numbers that you're not aware of and you're not familiar with. And again, that website is prosecutor.summitoh.net. Nothing further this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bellin. Mayor, do you have anything?
I do. I have one final thing. I don't know how many know that our Congresswoman Sykes had a town meeting scheduled here for tomorrow night. I think it was from 6:30 to 7:30. However, they had to cancel that. And I don't know how far they advertised it. I know that we put it in our newsletter. And so she's trying to, I guess, get it out to as many people as she can, but that's been canceled. She was called out of town, so they're going to reschedule that sometime in the future. So tomorrow night's off. Just so everybody knows. That's all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Scafidi. Mr. Vazana, anything new, miscellaneous?
No, sir.
All right. Mrs. Collins?
Nothing, thank you.
All right, we have no absent members to excuse this evening.
You have a motion.
Okay.
So I would like to make a motion to waive the 30-day waiting period on Appeal 03-2023. That was the Board of Zoning Appeals case that I mentioned earlier this evening.
Second.
Mr. Deeds made the motion, Mr. Bellin seconded. Anything additional you'd like to add or any discussion?
Yeah, just real quickly, so Mr. Almquist is sitting in the crowd out there, and he's patiently sitting here for the past hour and a half. Nice enough for him to do. His house is literally, it's approximately 70 years old. He's adding an addition. The addition is fully compliant, but his house, when it was originally built, there was no side yard setback, and then when they put the side yard setbacks in place sometime later, his house encroaches, actually a portion of his garage encroaches on the side yard setback. The variance is actually for the side yard setback of his garage. That had to become compliant in order for him to build the addition, which is fully compliant, if that makes sense. So now that he's got all of the approvals, we're just asking to waive the 30-day waiting period. We're not approving or disapproving the variance. We're just asking to waive the waiting period so he could start construction tomorrow while the weather's still somewhat nice. Thank you.
Any other discussion on Mr. Deeds' motion on the floor? Shannon, call the roll.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes. Terrific. Passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Deeds. All right, I also have a motion this evening. At this time, I would like to make a motion to enter into an executive session to consider the employment and compensation of a public employee or official. May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Bellin seconds. Any discussion? Shannon, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Barr?
Yes?
Mr. Bellin?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
All right, we will reconvene after the executive session and report back.